Hey, this is Elijah with the Oxygen team, and in this video, we're going to take a look at all the things that make Oxygen the most powerful and most flexible visual site builder for WordPress. Before we dive into the individual features, let's take a look at Oxygen's interface. Oxygen's interface is made to get out of your way and make designing your site incredibly easy. For example, if we drop in an element up here from our design library, such as a social proof element, and we want to see what this is going to look like without all the builder clutter around it, we can just hide both of the side panes and see a clear view of our design without having to jump up to the front end. We can also quickly add basic elements by going to Add and searching for whatever we want to put in. We can add sections, buttons, divs, and much more. While designing, we can also quickly navigate between mobile breakpoints to see and apply changes to those breakpoints. This makes responsive design so easy when working with Oxygen. To make changes to our elements, we simply click them in the Builder preview, and immediately we're presented with a number of controls in the primary tab of the Properties pane. The most commonly used controls for each element will be presented here in the primary tab, but you can dig into the Advanced tab to change just about everything about any element. We also have workflow enhancements like showing where properties for specific controls are coming from. For instance, we have the ID of this element selected, which is the core selector for every element, but this element also has a class, and that class has a text color, font size, and font weight value. We can tell that these styles are coming from the class because of this green indicator on the left-hand side. If we hover over it, it tells us that style is coming from a class. If we apply some change to the ID, this indicator will instead show that the style is coming from the ID, which is handy if you're editing a class and need to know why your changes are not applying. It's also super easy to adjust your spacing. Simply click a container, hover over the bottom or top, and click and drag to adjust top or bottom padding. You can do the same with top and bottom margin by selecting an element, hovering just above or below it, and clicking and dragging. If we wanted to add some bottom spacing here, we just click and drag. We also have super quick access to all the things you'll need to build your designs. The structure pane, which gives you a tree view of everything you've created. A history list, which gives you a history of all the changes you've made and allows you to step back through them. Our settings pane, where you can set up global styles that apply across your entire site and make your design work so much more consistent and easy. Style sheets, where you can build your own custom CSS style sheets that apply across your site. And selectors, where you can manipulate classes added in Oxygen or add your own custom selectors and style their properties using Oxygen's visual interface. We also have a quick back to WordPress or front end button and our save button. In addition to the on-screen controls, we also have several keyboard shortcuts. Command or Control S to save, Command or Control Z for undo, Command or Control Y for redo, Command or Control D for duplicate, Command or Control Delete for delete, and then Command or Control C for copy, and Command or Control V for paste. Note that the copy and paste does work across different pages. So if you're editing one design and you want to copy an element, you can jump over to another design on the same site and paste the element there, saving you tons of time recreating your designs. Oxygen makes it so easy to achieve beautiful layouts with its Flexbox and CSS grid controls. Here I have a section with a couple of divs laid out as cards and some images. So let's play around with the layout and see what we can do. Let's expand the properties pane here. And with our section selected, we have a few child element layout options. We have a vertical layout, which is the default, and that's what we see right now. So if we wanted to display the items like this, we could, but we don't want them all stacked up right against each other. So we can use the Flexbox gap control to add some space between each. So let's add 32 pixels of gap. And now you can see a gap there, a gap there, a gap between each and every element in the layout. We can also do horizontal layouts with Flexbox. So let's choose horizontal, and you can see that our gap still applies. But a horizontal layout is a little bit more work. First, we can decide whether we want our layout to wrap or not. By default, it's not going to wrap. It's just going to be a scrollable container. But if we go to Advanced Layout, we can set Flex Wrap to wrap, which is going to cause our elements to drop down. Now it looks a lot like the first layout until we go in and start making some changes to the widths of these elements. So let's add a class called width 50, and we're going to set the width on this class to 50%. And then let's apply that class to this image as well. Now that we have 50% width, we can go ahead and play with the flex gap to get everything side by side. So let's reduce the gap to 0, and you can see what the effect is here. Typically with a horizontal flexbox layout, you're going to add padding inside of your divs to achieve the spacing between elements. But we could do 32 pixels of gap. Then we could go select our width 50 class, and we could choose the none unit, and we could type in a CSS function like calc 50% minus 32 pixels. And you can see now that our width is going to accommodate this pixel value. Let's step that down to 16. Now everything's aligned perfectly, and because of the calc function we've used in the width, it accommodates our gap. Now let's get rid of this class because I want to jump into the grid layout option. So I'm going to delete this class from both of these elements, and then we'll select our section again, and we're going to jump into grid. Grid is a much quicker and easier way to achieve those horizontal layouts when you need spacing between elements and don't want to mess with CSS functions. So right here, we can choose a column count. Let's go down to 3. And you can see immediately we have a pretty nice looking grid. We can adjust the min width and max width of each cell, and we can adjust the gap. Let's set this to 32 again on the rows and the columns. Now, one of the coolest parts of the CSS grid layout controls in Oxygen is the child span override interface. You can see here in our preview that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. And in the child span override interface, we also have 6 controls. When we click one of these, we can set its column and row span. So if we want this first card element to span 2 columns, we put in 2 and it spans 2 columns. We can also set its row span. And now you can see we're starting to get these really nice, somewhat complex CSS grid layouts without writing any CSS at all. Oxygen's class-based styling workflow will save you tons of time and makes it super easy to get beautiful, consistent results. Here I have a basic grid layout that I've set up, and I want to make some changes across multiple elements. So for instance, these image cells, I'd like them to have a bit of a box shadow, kind of like our cards do. So I'm going to select one image, and I'm going to get this box shadow set up. So let's add a class named box shadow. And I can tell that I'm editing the class now because it shows the class box shadow at the top of the properties pane instead of the element's ID. So I know I'm going to be able to use these styles across multiple elements. Now let's go to advanced effects and box shadow to set up the shadow that we want. So let's choose a dark but not quite black color, and let's adjust the transparency down quite a bit. And now let's adjust the shadow horizontal offset and the shadow vertical offset. We'll do maybe 2 pixels for each. And now we get into the fun part. Let's add some blur. And you can see here, while it's subtle, it lifts the element up from the background a bit. Let's make this a bit darker so that you can clearly see what I'm doing. So now we adjust the blur to get the blur that we like, and then we can adjust the spread as well. We're going to leave it at 0. And while we're at it, let's adjust this opacity back down for a more subtle effect, but let's also add a filtering effect. So let's create another class called filter, and we'll go to effects, filter, and we're going to apply some kind of a filter to these images, maybe a grayscale effect to desaturate them a bit. So you can see now that we have an almost grayscale there. So now I want to apply these styles to multiple elements. That's easy to do. Let's select one of the other image elements, and let's type box shadow and click it to add that to the element. And now the shadow is applied. Let's apply the filter class, and now our filter is applied. Let's do the same here. Filter, box shadow. On this one, filter, and box shadow. So just like that, we've taken a couple of what are typically called utility classes and applied them across multiple elements. Now here's where the magic really happens. Let's select one of our image elements, and let's go to the filter class. We've set up this filter across many elements, maybe across multiple pages on our site, but we're not happy with the effect. How do we change it? Because we used a class, it's so easy. Let's go to Advanced, Effects, Filter, and we simply adjust it up or down. And you can see that that effect is applied to every single element with that class. To illustrate this a bit more, let's go over and adjust something else, such as opacity. Let's set them all to completely transparent, and you can see that they all change at the same exact time. And we can adjust it up or down. So the class-based styling workflow that Oxygen has baked in will save you an incredible amount of time and make styling multiple elements so much easier. Oxygen's ability to style states and pseudo-selectors makes it incredibly simple to set up really eye-catching effects. For example, let's take one of these image elements and let's add a class to it called Hover. And we want to add some effect to this element on Hover. So let's choose the Hover state. We'll click State and choose Hover. Now, what do we want this image to do when we hover it? We just go to Advanced or somewhere in the Primary tab and adjust the settings that we want to have changed when the element's hovered. For this, I think we'll go to Effects and Transform, and we'll apply a couple of transforms. Let's rotate it by 2 degrees, and let's add another transform or 2, and we'll do a scale by 1.1, 1.1, and 2 on the Z. Now, finally, let's add a bit of a rotate 3D. So let's set our angle to something like 50 degrees. We'll probably have to adjust that. Let's set the X to 2, Y to 2, and Z to 2. And now you can see the effect we have. And we can adjust this in real time to get it to where we want it. We don't want anything too dramatic. So let's adjust this back up here. And this will go this way. And then this will adjust this way. And let's reduce the number of degrees to get a less dramatic effect. So now we get this kind of scale rotation and a 3D movement effect. Now, if we go back to the normal state of this element and we hover over it, we can see that all the changes we made now take effect. But we have a problem. It just jumps to the hover state rather than transitioning. So while we're on the normal state of this element, we just go to Advanced, Effects, Transition, and set a transition duration, a timing function if we want. I usually like ease in out. And we can also set the CSS property and delay. But now if we hover this element, you can see this smooth transformation effect on hover. And because we did it on a class, we can add that effect to every other element if we'd like by dropping that hover class in. Hover on this one, and now it does the same thing. Even a card, it's a completely different type of element, but we can still apply the hover effect to it as well. So let's apply that to the rest of these. This one. And finally, this big card. And then let's take a look on the front end to see what that looks like. Let's scroll on down. And now when we hover over our elements, we get this kind of cool hover effect. And it was so easy to set up and then use across multiple elements. Making your website responsive in Oxygen is one of the easiest things in the world. Here I have a design that I've imported from our design library, and I'm just going to adjust the responsive styles. So right now we have this big heading, some text, and a button, as well as an image here. So let's go ahead and adjust this. So to change styles responsively, we simply select a breakpoint and then make the changes we want. And those changes are automatically applied to only that breakpoint and below. So if we want to adjust our font size down a bit, we can do that here. And now you can see we go back up to full screen and it's big, and we go down to this breakpoint and it has been adjusted down. We can also adjust this text, and we can adjust our button. Let's go to Advanced, Size and Spacing, and we'll just adjust the padding down. Now those changes are locked in on this breakpoint. And if we select any element, we can see which breakpoint has styles from the purple underline. Or if we hover the breakpoint, you can see the red X to clear those responsive styles. So now let's make a couple final changes here, such as hiding this image on mobile. So we'll go down to, say, less than 992 pixels, and we'll go to Advanced, Layout, and set Display to None. And then for these icon divs, they're in a columns element. And I want to reverse the order of these at less than 992 pixels. So right now it's Apartment, Roadmap, Office Tech. I want Office Tech to be at the top. So we're going to reverse the column order at less than 992 pixels. And like that, we now have a bespoke mobile design. So let's save this and take a look on the front end. So here's our full screen layout. It looks great. Now we're going to right-click Inspect to simulate a mobile device, and we're going to step down to 992 pixels in width. So you can see as we adjust, boom, there goes some of our responsive changes to change these font sizes and adjust the button padding. And then we can see here that we still have our image in the Apartment, Roadmap, Office Tech icon sections. Let's adjust down to 992 pixels. And now we're going to see our image disappears and Office Text is the first item in this columns element. So with Oxygen, it takes no time at all to tailor your layouts to specific device widths. And speaking of device widths, if we go into Settings, Global Styles, Width, and Breakpoints, we can adjust each breakpoint to whichever width we want to use. So you're not locked into the exact breakpoints that Oxygen ships with. You can adjust them to your use case easily. Oxygen's global styles are one of the most powerful tools in Oxygen. To get to global styles, we go to Settings and Global Styles. Note that I've inserted a page design from our Atomic design set in the design library, but I need to adjust this to be on brand. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Colors, and I have an Atomic global color list. This includes every color that's used in the design set. So instead of blues, I want to go more towards purple and pink. So let's just drag that down, and we'll adjust all of these blues here to be more on brand for our site. Let's adjust this one. And this hippie blue will adjust down to a more purple tone. And finally, this kind of dark blue gray will go down to purple as well. And now, in an instant, we've made our entire design match our color scheme for our brand. Global colors will save you literally hours in adjusting colors in your design. But we can also adjust other aspects, such as fonts. So we have our text font and our display font. Let's change our display font up to something like maybe Rubik. And then let's change our text font to Carla. And just like that, we've adjusted our branding even further to match our style. And let's go back. We can also adjust heading styles, body text, link styles, width and breakpoints, sections and columns, which is where you'll adjust the container padding for sections and default padding for columns, as well as global animate on scroll settings and some global scripts. So you can see from this how leveraging Oxygen's global styles will speed up your workflow to incredible extents. With Oxygen's integration of the Animate on Scroll library, it only takes a few clicks to add modern, beautiful scroll-triggered animations to your Oxygen site. So here we have a section with a grid of cards and images, and we want to have these elements animate in when they scroll into view. So let's select the first card, and let's go to Advanced, Effects, and Animate on Scroll. Let's enable animation for this element, and let's decide which animation type we want. Let's do something like zoom in up, maybe. That looks pretty good. We can adjust the animation duration. Let's set it to 1 second. We can also adjust anchor placement, animation easing, trigger offset, delay, anchor, and we can decide to animate only once if we'd like. Now let's set this up for the other elements, and we're going to do a bit of a staggered animation. So we're going to choose the zoom in up animation type for each, 1000 millisecond duration, but we're going to add an animation delay. So let's choose this image, Advanced, Effects, Animate on Scroll, Enable Animation. Let's choose Zoom In Up, 1000 milliseconds for the duration, And then let's add a delay of 100 milliseconds. And then for this one, we'll do advanced effects, animate on scroll, the same settings up here, zoom in up, 1,000 milliseconds, and then we'll do a 200 millisecond animation delay. Let me go ahead and set this up for these last 3 elements, and then we'll take a look on the front end. So here we are on the front end after I completed setting up the animations for each element in that grid. Let's scroll down and see the effect. Absolutely beautiful. This is sure to grab the attention of any website visitor, and it only took a few minutes to set up. Oxygen comes with a library of pre-built pages and sections that let you get something built out really quickly with hardly any effort at all. So let's build a page using our design library. So we'll click the Add button and go down to Library, Design Sets, and let's choose Atomic. Now, if we want to just insert a whole page, we can go to the Pages section and pick one we like and click it to drop the whole thing in. But I want to build this out of individual sections and elements. So let's click Sections and Elements, and let's start with Heroes and Titles. Let's drop in a really cool hero. That looks great. Now let's add something else. Let's do some social proof here, a testimonial, and let's add some content here. Let's choose these icons and boxes, and let's add one more section, something like a call to action here. And then I want that call to action to repeat, so I'm going to duplicate this. So I'm going to hit Command or Control D to duplicate it and drag it up here below my hero. So let's save that and take a look on the front end. And as you can see, we've built a really solid design out really quickly using Oxygen's design library. And we can easily edit any element by clicking it, adjusting the properties in the Properties pane, or editing the text. One of the core guiding principles for Oxygen is that it should be easy to work with dynamic data on your WordPress site. So we've added tools in Oxygen to make it super simple to use and render dynamic data in your designs. So here I'm on an Oxygen template that applies to posts. And we're going to build this out to render the data of whichever post we're looking at using this template. So we're going to add a section, and let's add an image. And the first bit of dynamic data we're going to drop in is going to be the featured image of the post we're viewing. So we'll choose the data button and we'll choose featured image. And there we have it. And then let's add another bit of dynamic data, the post title. So let's go below that and we're going to add a heading element. And we'll make this an H2. And we're going to double click this to edit the text and click Insert Data. And we're going to insert the post title. But you can see the number of options we have here for dynamic data. Let's drop in the title, insert it, and now we have the title. Now we need some post meta. So let's add another text element and we'll say written by, and then we'll insert the author name. So we'll choose Insert Data and choose Author Display Name and insert. And you can see there that my name is displayed next to the text that I wrote. Finally, we need the actual post content. So let's drop in another text element and we'll double click this, click Insert Data, and choose Content. Now we have the entire post content displayed. Now let's lay this out a bit nicer. So we'll select the section and set a gap, and we'll adjust the font size of the title, and we'll change the text color to true black. Now we have a nice little post layout, but here's where the magic occurs. We're previewing this post, but what happens if we look at another post? Let's pick one and see. You can see that all of our data updates to reflect this post. And the same happens on the front end. So let's save this and we'll jump up to the front end to view this post. And as you can see, we have the featured image, the title, the author, and then all of the post content. Now let's grab a different post and then we'll preview that one on the front end. It's the exact same template and layout, but all of the data is being fetched dynamically. It's also super easy to fetch dynamic data from custom fields added via plugins such as Toolset, Advanced Custom Fields, and MetaBox. And Oxygen's dynamic data allows you to display virtually anything with the PHP function return value option. You can plug in any function name, function arguments, and it will display whatever's returned by that function. So there are almost no limits when working with dynamic data in Oxygen. Oxygen includes a super powerful interface for applying conditions to basically any element in Oxygen. To show you how this works, we're going to build a little navigation bar / notification bar that only shows up to logged in users. So let's go ahead and add a div to our design here. And we want to move it up out of this section so it can kind of stand on its own. Now let's close the structure pane and let's adjust the styles on this div. Let's set the background to something that matches our design set. And we're going to add a couple of things. We're going to add some text on the left-hand side with some kind of notification for our members. So we'll set the text to white and up the font weight a bit. And we'll say, members only discount, use code super free during checkout. Now we're going to add another bit of text, so we'll duplicate that, and we'll say my account. This is going to be a button, so we'll turn this into a link, and we'll add that link. Now let's select the div, and we'll go to advanced size and spacing and add some padding. Let's do 8 pixels top and bottom, and 32 left and right. Now we want to go back to primary and lay things out horizontally with space between. Now we have this nice little members only notification bar, but everyone can see it at the moment. We don't want that. We want only people who are logged in to see it. So let's select our div element and let's click our conditions button. We have a few controls such as condition type or we can choose or, and then we have some in-editor behavior options. Let's go ahead and set a condition on this. Let's add our first condition and choose a condition. You can see our list is quite extensive for built-in conditions, but we also include a conditions API that makes it easy to create your own conditions, which use PHP to check values and compare things and then show or hide Oxygen elements based on the results. But for this one, we're going to use a super easy one called user logged in. If user logged in equals true, then we're going to show this element. So let's save this and let's experiment on the front end. Let's make sure we can see it while we're logged in. We can. Now let's go ahead and log out to see what happens. And you can see here we are on the same exact page, but we don't see that notification bar at the top because we're logged out. Note that this isn't just hiding the element, it's not even output in the markup of the page when the condition is not met. So with Oxygen's powerful conditions feature, you can tailor your website's experience to specific users or specific types of users. You can also base conditions on pretty much anything you want with our conditions API. Oxygen's WooCommerce integration introduces powerful tools for quickly building and styling your WooCommerce site. This is a design I built in Oxygen. I'm displaying the WooCommerce store here. If I click a product, we're going to see a custom product layout built and customized in Oxygen. And every part of the WooCommerce experience has been designed to fit my site. So let's jump into Oxygen and we'll take a look at how all this works. First, it's important to note that Oxygen's templating system allows you to apply templates to products and the main shop very easily. Let's jump into our product template and take a look. Here we can see our custom product layout built using Oxygen's WooCommerce integration. We have our product details, including our product images, title, price, description, and an add to cart button. We also have some tabs down here that allow us to view the description and reviews, as well as the related products. Now, if we click the Add button and go to the WooCommerce category, we'll see all the elements that are included in Oxygen's WooCommerce integration, including many single product elements, some elements for archives and product lists, some elements for WooCommerce pages like shopping cart, checkout, order tracking, and my account, as well as breadcrumbs, a cart total, and an Ajax mini cart. So with all of these elements combined with Oxygen's templating system, you're able to customize virtually every aspect of your WooCommerce store. But adding on to that, Oxygen's WooCommerce add-on also introduces WooCommerce Global Styles. Let's take a look at those. In the WooCommerce Global Styles, you can set up styles that will apply across all of your WooCommerce elements, like buttons. If we want to adjust our button colors, we could go ahead and do that here. Let's adjust everything down to more of a blue-purple tone. And anywhere we see orange, we're going to go ahead and adjust this to match our brand color. And let's adjust this one as well. And we'll go ahead and step through these other styles like links. And anywhere we see this orange, we're going to continue adjusting it down to a purplish bluish tone. And let's see what we have for inputs. Input focus border, let's adjust that. Text, that looks good. Notifications, this one will change. And then let's take a look at miscellaneous. We have some badges here we want to adjust. Star rating. And the grayed out star rating. This one we might want to desaturate a bit. And then finally, we have our widgets, which just have some size, font weight, and font family selections. So if we save that, and then go up to the front end and refresh, we're going to see that all of our WooCommerce branding now matches this new color scheme that we've chosen. And let's take a look. We can go to our cart, and you can see the colors have been adjusted here as well. We can go to our account page and see that the colors here have also been adjusted to match our styling. So with the combination of Oxygen's WooCommerce elements for visually building out the structure of your WooCommerce site, combined with Oxygen's global WooCommerce settings, it's never been easier to build a beautiful WooCommerce site. So one of the main reasons people switch to Oxygen is performance. Whether they're coming from another page builder or they're coming from the camp of, I'll never use a page builder because page builders are slow and output messy code, Oxygen tends to change their mind. The reason that Oxygen beats the competition on performance is because Oxygen isn't bloated. It loads what it needs and gets everything else out of the way. It's always been built and continues to be developed with performance in mind. Now, I've just pulled up a few articles and things to show you what other people are finding when it comes to Oxygen's performance. Before I really jump into these, it's important to understand that Oxygen does not have an affiliate program. We don't pay people to talk about Oxygen. All of these articles I found in about 5 minutes of Googling, and they're all articles that people and companies made because they were impressed by Oxygen's performance. Not to mention, there's a few companies in here that switch their entire site over to Oxygen to get better performance. So here we have oxygenforfun.supadesign.com. This is Supa Mike. He's big in the Oxygen community, but also across page builder communities in general. And he does this awesome report showing how much data builders load by default. And he's updated it since December 2018. He did one May 2019, November 2019, and May 2020. So you can see the progression. For example, Brizzy, the amount of CSS and JavaScript it's loading just kind of exploded. Divi Builder got bigger. Elementor Pro got bigger. WP Bakery stayed pretty static. And then at the bottom, you have Oxygen and Beaver Builder. So Beaver Builder is not too bad, but Oxygen is still the builder, even in May 2020, that loads the smallest amount of CSS and JavaScript out of the gate. That's because we don't want to load anything you're not actually using. So then jumping over to another article here on Tuned WP, why we are switching to Oxygen Builder, and I bet you we'll find a performance report here. It says the winner with the sticky header and page navigation. The winner is clear. Beaver got 49 mobile PSI and 81 desktop. Oxygen got 80 mobile PSI and 85 desktop. The page built by Oxygen had a third of the number of lines of code compared to the Beaver page. Well, that says it pretty plainly. Now jumping over here, Convezio, switching from WP Bakery to Oxygen Page Builder. One of our New Year's resolutions was to put our website on a diet, and with Oxygen, we've been able to shed a few kilobytes. So again, another performance-focused switchover. Why they chose us? Well, I don't know. They said they did their homework. They looked at Gutenberg, Divi, Elementor. So why Oxygen? It was recommended to them by Nate Feinberg, who says our agency moved exclusively to Oxygen Builder in the beginning of 2020. It first caught our attention with its impressive performance speed and unique themeless building system. Oxygen is optimized out of the box and only loads assets as needed. So again, another company switching their entire site over to Oxygen. And let's just keep going through these. So here we have Cloudways talking about Oxygen's performance, why you should use Oxygen Page Builder. Look at their GT metrics report that they're showing. 100%, 95%, 323 milliseconds. Pingdom scores, 92, 277 milliseconds. Page speed insights, 92. Again, incredible performance out of the box. And again, somebody else finds out that Oxygen is just way faster than the competition. This is from the admin bar by Kyle Van Duzen. He did some testing against Elementor, Gutenberg, and then finally he checked out Oxygen to see how it did against Elementor. And I guess you can see from the headline, Oxygen crushed Elementor too. And if we scroll down, I bet he has some performance reports shown here. Here we go. Here's a little screenshot. And you can see that compared to Elementor, Oxygen scored really, really well. Same on page speed insights. There's the Elementor page, 46, and the Oxygen page at 92. Moving on again, we could do this for quite a while. This is WP Rocket. They did an article on Oxygen's performance versus Elementor. It says, is Oxygen faster than Elementor? The short answer is yes, Oxygen is faster than Elementor. Well, that's because we built Oxygen to be faster than the other page builders. And finally, this is from isotropic.co. It says the code output is vastly cleaner with Oxygen. This resulted in a much larger page size for Elementor. Oxygen Builder outputs cleaner code, which results in a faster loading front-end page. So again and again, people find that Oxygen is the performance-focused choice. If you're going to use a page builder to build your WordPress site, Oxygen is the clear winner.